Okay, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to mount this onto a box panel. So I've got a pack of 6 box panels here. They were very cheap off Amazon. I'll pop the link in, but it's just another way for you to have a good gift idea. So this is a watercolour that I did a few years ago, and I've just trimmed it down a little bit because I think this robin will look beautiful on there. So the first thing that I'm going to do is sort of place where I think I want this to go on. So it is slightly bigger than the box panel, and that's going to be really helpful. What I'm doing now is with a knitting needle or something that I know is going to indent, I'm just going to place a mark. What I'm hoping is this is going to show through on the other side of the paper so that I know where I'm placing this to get the picture that I want. So it doesn't have to be too precise, and I can just about see it on the other side. So I know I'm going to be placing it around about there. Okay, so I'm going to use a bit of spray glue. You could use PVA glue. I wouldn't recommend Pritt Stick because I don't think it would stick for very long. The good thing about doing it bigger and cutting it down after is that you know that you're going to get glue on the right place. So I'm going to spray that. I need to leave it a few seconds just to tack up. Then I'm looking for my marks, which I can just about see, and I'm going to place it down on there. And then I'm going to leave this to dry. So it's on there, leave it to dry, and then I'll show you the next stage. Okay, so this is dry now, and what I've got is I've got a little craft blade, but a Stanley knife or a craft knife, and you want to be on something to cut onto so you don't go through onto your table, and you're just going to run along that edge. Little bit of pressure and keep it as neat as you can. Take it right the way up to the frame or the box mount and run along that edge. If it doesn't do it first time, do it a second time. If it doesn't do it that time, keep going. It will eventually go through. This one's been a bit tricky. That first one, it just did it great. Alright, go through again. There we go. I quite like using just the blade and holding it. I feel like I'm a bit more in control than with a knife. They can't put quite as much pressure on. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Watercolour paper's quite thick, isn't it? Keep going. There we go. Now if it rips, because it's done that to me, look, then what do? Not panic, just go through it again. That's it. Okay, so we've got this now, a nice neat edge. Okay, so I have got fairly neat edges. If they weren't that neat and they were a bit rough in places, I could very lightly sand them down. I've done quite well and I've got quite neat edges there. If there's any bits sticking out, then turn it over and cut them again. I'm going to sign this just because it's a gift and it needs a little signature on. And then what we're going to do is wax over. Okay, so water-based needs something oil-based over it to protect it. So you can, if you're very careful, get away with a varnish if it's a spray varnish and you've used a cotton paper, but there's always a chance it'll lift. So what I'm going to use is a wax. Now any wax, beeswax that's clear will work. So this just happens to be something that I've had in the utility room for years, and it is soft wax, so I'm just going to use it. It's, in fact, it's even still got a sponge in it. I think I did some drawers upcycling a few years ago. So what I want you to do is apply a layer of wax. So I'm picking a bit up on a sponge. This is just an old sponge that's left in it. And then I'm going to take it off with a cloth, a soft cloth, so that it's not too coated. Now, I've never done this before on a watercolour, so I've seen this online, and it's quite popular now because it means you don't have to have frames for things, and they can go on panels, and they look a lot more modern. So you're going to give it a nice layer. And in fact, I'd rather take more on that I've got to buff off than not have enough, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to keep coming over. And you can do the sides as well, because that will protect the natural wood. I mean, you could paint the sides, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave them as they are. They're quite nice little pine frames. I'm going over it different directions, just to make sure that I've got it all into the surface of the paper. Okay, so I've got some old sheet, because it needs to be a lint-free cloth, and I'm gonna just buff over it now. Just keep checking. Look, I've never done this before, so this is a new for me. If it doesn't work, you'll never see this video. If it works, you'll see it. So I'm buffing down. I'll buff down the edges as well. Then I'm going to leave the wax to harden, and then we're going to test that it is water resistant, because I wouldn't ever want to give anything that might tarnish. So that'll be a good test for us. Okay, so I'm just basically buffing it down. I don't want them to feel like there's a residue on here. It looks really nice. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for 24 hours to harden. Okay, so this has had 24 hours to harden, and I'm just going to try a little bit of water on the surface. What I'm worried about really is I've never done this before, and whether it's actually going to coat the surface, which means that if it gets damp or anything, that it's gonna, oh yeah, it's beading. It is beading. Can you see that? So this is just a water spritzer, and it's beading on the surface. So in theory, it should be protected. This is a new technique, and it's not lifted off. So yes, you can have a go at that if you want to. I think they make really lovely little gifts. You can hang them on the wall. They're very modern looking in this way.